gas can off that shelf, burning rubber, burning grass. Kiss these lips or kiss this ass, won't take his eyes off of you and those Daisy Dukes. Get you thinking that you need me. Boys are too easy. Manicure for something that a man can't cure. French tip, French kiss. I'll leave you in the dust like this.
All right, hey guys, welcome to our workshop today. Super grateful to have all of you guys here. Quick thing before we get started, we're going to be recording today's workshop, and so I know that you guys can probably hear us because we're in close proximity with each other, but guess what can't hear us? That's right, the camera. So make sure we're talking into the microphone, just so the recordings and our posterity and our children who will come here in 15 years, 20 years, I don't know how long, we'll be able to see this and use this as an awesome resource. So please welcome Jono, Diperi, and Connor Wright. They are the founders of Rep Labs. Is that correct? Here to talk to you about marketing and, yeah. I don't know much more about you guys. I'll have them introduce themselves. But yeah, here we'll give you guys 2 microphones, and then for Q&A, we'll take one of them and pass them around.
Cool. Right on. Thanks, everyone. Can everyone hear me? I'm not good at talking into these, so if it goes out, just yell at me. But yeah, thanks for the intro. I'm Jono Diperi. This is Connor. So yeah, we started Rep Labs. I want to start by giving just a general kind of intro to who we are, our background, Rep Labs, so you kind of know some of our experience. Our primary focus is consumer goods, e-commerce, marketing. It's kind of the world that we live in. We kind of planned this meeting pretty loosely because we want to make sure that we talk about the stuff that's most impactful for you guys, right? As a workshop, we want to make sure we're discussing the problems, the questions that you have. We do have a handful of topics we can go through and can talk, but I'm hoping that you guys interact and let us know what you want to know about, because we planned it pretty loosely, hoping that we would get your guys' feedback. But Rep Labs, we've been around for several years now. We got started, I was a BYU student, mechanical engineering student, when I started my first company, and didn't know anything about running a business, didn't know anything about marketing, and kind of went through, I think, the common path that a lot of first entrepreneurs experience there, where I was like, I need somebody to do my marketing. So I hired an agency thinking that they were the pros and they were going to do a great job, and quickly realized that that wasn't the case. Lost probably 10 grand on the first agency I used, 20 grand on the next agency, between ad spend and retainers and fees. I think before I wised up, I was like over $100,000, close to $200,000 in the hole on these marketing efforts that just, I was trusting people to get me where I needed to be and it just not paying off. So I kind of determined, like, I'm never going to let somebody do my ads again. I just got to figure out how to do this. I need to learn this myself before I can delegate it. And that's kind of where I built a relationship with Connor. I knew Connor through family stuff, and I reached out to him, and I was just like, hey, I know you're in advertising. I know you've done this for a while. He's written a couple books. He had his own agency. He'd been doing it for a while, got his degree in social media marketing. I was like, I will pay you just to teach me how to get into a Facebook ads manager and just teach me what's going on there, because I literally knew nothing. And it was a few months into working with Connor and talking to him that I kind of learned, okay, all of the reasons why I lost so much money, why these advertising agencies really weren't incentivized to help me perform, where the mistakes were, what was going wrong, and how to do it myself. At the time, my first brand is called MyoStorm. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of it, but we were on Shark Tank back in 2019. So it's kind of that time frame that I got so busy just with Shark Tank and everything that was happening there that I went to Connor and I was like, hey, I know I said I was never going to let somebody really run my ads, but I don't have the time for this. I've worked with you. I trust you enough that, like, can you just run them while I'm like dealing with all of these things? And it went really, really well. He was doing a great job, so I kept him doing things. Basically gave him more and more responsibility, and he ultimately became essentially the CMO of MyoStorm while he was still freelancing and running ads for other companies and brands. It was around that time that we decided that we worked really, really well together and wanted to start something that we wish existed when I started my first company, right? An agency that really helped the young entrepreneurs learn about marketing, understand advertising, make sure that they weren't wasting their ad dollars, and that after working with us, they were kind of more empowered to succeed. So we started Rep Labs with that initial vision, but also the long-term goal of just owning our own brands, building this e-commerce engine that we could take a brand from an idea all the way to an exit, and we could own and run every aspect of the business. So since those early days, Rep Labs has grown to now we've started a handful of brands, we've acquired several brands, we do the marketing, advertising, and most of the e-commerce services for a handful of brands, all in the 6 to 8 figure range. And we kind of own and are experts in the whole process. So today we want to focus a lot on marketing and advertising because that's what we found is really the primary, most important aspect of your business in terms of generating revenue. And if you can't generate revenue, none of the other aspects of the business really matter at all. So that's what we want to focus on today, but we're happy to discuss other topics if there's any needs within consumer goods, e-commerce, all the way up from ideation, product development, supply chain, and up. So the plan today is to kind of just go through some of the basics of marketing, some of the philosophical high-level stuff, which may be kind of 101 for some of you guys. I know we've met with a lot of you teams individually, and you'll know some of this stuff. But then we'll work our way up to talking more specifics on advertising metrics and what it looks like to live, in paid digital ads. Connor, anything you want to add to that?
No, that's good.
Okay. So have just a brief outline I'm going to pull up here so I make sure that I don't miss some of the things that we wanted to talk about.
Well, just
I'll let Connor do like a rap or something while I'm pulling this up for you guys.
word. No, so my biggest frustration with marketing and advertising at the very beginning when I was going to school is my very first advertising class, I just asked the teachers like, hey, what's like the way to get new clients? What's the way to sell products? And the answer I got was pretty frustrating. It was, well, you could build an email list and newsletter and then send emails out, or you could post on social media, grow a following, you could run some ads, you could do whatever. And I was like, no, I just need like step one, this, step two, this, step three, money. And no one could give me an answer. And that was why I was super frustrated. I stopped going to school after, 2 years. My whole focus in advertising is new customer acquisition and how to get people to buy a product. And so a lot of the stuff we're going to be going over today is mainly that, how to get people to buy your stuff. Which, again, like Jono said, if people don't buy your stuff, it doesn't matter how great your operations are. It doesn't matter how great your supply chain is. It doesn't matter how cool your brand is. You have no money and you won't have a business. So that's what we're going to be diving into.
Okay, so kind of the first starting point is just like the core of marketing. We do this a lot where we'll meet with brands for consulting, or we'll do audits for brands. And so we've come across a lot of very common pitfalls. The most common one, which may be surprising to some people, but we find that it's pretty normal, is like the most basic concept of selling a product. And that is that people buy solutions to their problems and they don't buy products, right? So we found a lot that in advertising, people are very excited about the features of their product, and they talk about, they're very, very feature heavy. They focus on like, oh, my thing does this or does that, but really people don't care the little cool feature about your product. The reason they'll buy or they'll stop on an ad is because they believe that it will solve a problem that they have, for the most part. So I'll let Connor dig in a little bit more to that.
Yeah, so a perfect example of this is Jono's brand, MyoStorm. It's a vibrating heating massage ball. Essentially, a lot of the times when we were working with the advertisers before, when Jono was, they say like, check out this vibrating heating massage ball. It helps with recovery. But that doesn't really solve a problem for people. It has heat. Who cares? It has vibration. Who cares? People want that solution to their problem. And so when we started the advertising, we started breaking it down even more to, pain in the knee. Hey, do you have knee pain? Do you have knee pain? This will help with knee pain. And that started to improve things. The next phase we realized was, well, there's lots of different types of knee pain. I have knee pain because I played football in high school and getting knocked in the knees all the time. It's just lingering pain, as opposed to my 95-year-old grandma who's had 2 knee surgeries. That's both knee pain, but are both very different types of knee pain. So then we started getting even more specific, and right now our best performing ad is an iPhone video of me saying, hey, if you have pain on the side of your knee because of a tight IT band, where your IT band is pulling on your knee, the Meteor is a great product because it loosens up the IT band, then relieves the pain on your knee. You do that 2 or 3 minutes a day for the next 2 weeks, your knee pain's gonna go away. And our conversion rate, our click-through rates, all of our marketing metrics have been 10 times better because we're solving a very specific problem for people. Because if your problem's really broad, and you're not really talking to anyone individually, and you're not gonna see great results.
So just real quick, how many, is everybody in here mostly like consumer goods, e-commerce, pretty much? Cool. Yeah, so yeah, exactly kind of what Connor touched on. Those are the main two issues. One, we see people focus too much on the features, and you might think that you know what the problem you're solving is, and a lot of times we find out when we go in and start talking to business owners and start looking into their ads, they still don't, right? They're still missing the picture there. And then also Connor pointed out, like, you can be too broad. If your product is good for everybody and everybody should have it, it's not helpful for anybody. It's the same thing. You want to get really focused in the problem that you're solving. And even if your product is great for lots of different type of people, you need to separate that, right? So your advertising, the copy on your landing pages and website should be very geared to like this person's specific problem, because when you're running an ad or you're getting in front of somebody online, you have nowadays with people's attention spans and how fast they scroll, a second or less to convince them that like you will solve their problem or can solve their problem. They should listen more. If it's too broad, if it's too, hey, this is the miracle thing for everybody, they're just going to scroll by because it's not hitting that chord with them on this is specifically my issue.
Well, and this is also a good principle for selling anything. So with advertising and marketing, we found that, like, you know, there's a lot of marketing agencies out there, right? And they do marketing. They do SEO. They do PR. They do organic social media. They do ads. They do website. They do all these things. And you know, they do these things, but they don't solve specific problems. So when we talk to businesses and other people about Rep Labs, our problem solve is we help businesses acquire new customers through social media advertising. And the thing is like, if you're not struggling with acquiring new customers, that's wonderful. I don't want to talk to you because I'm not going to solve any other problems. Yes, I could run your ads for you, sure, but that's not what I want to do. I want to help businesses who are struggling with new customer acquisition because that's what we do. And so it makes it a lot easier when we're talking to businesses for them to be like, yes, I have that problem, or no, I don't. And it's the same thing with selling e-commerce brands. Selling a product across the board, you got to solve a problem for someone. And if you don't, they're not going to buy.
So I know this is sort of meant to be like a workshop. What I would actually like, if anyone's willing, I would love for anybody who's willing and brave enough to kind of share more about what their product is and what they feel like the problem they're solving is, and we can just talk about it. Maybe collectively we can kind of discuss whether we feel like the problem you're solving is actually the real problem, maybe guide through, hey, are those features or those problems? I kind of want to get us thinking and practically thinking about your brand specifically. What is the problem that your business is solving? Anybody willing?
Jose bullied me. Do you want me to sit here? Do you want me to come up front?
You're good.
Cool. Okay, so I do shoes with. Where did he go? He ran away. I do lifting shoes for the gym. They're kind of like a slip-on. They kind of look like a sock on the top, but then on the bottom they've got like a barefoot sole, similar to something like Zero shoes, Viva barefoot shoes, stuff like that. We have been, and then you want to know the pains that we solve.
What do you think the problem that you're solving is?
So,
Or one of them.
one of the ways that we demonstrate the problem that we solve is essentially like the first question that I'll ask someone is like, do you deadlift? And then they will say, yes, I do deadlift. And then I say, do you deadlift with your shoes on? They say, no, I kick my shoes off every time. And we say, well, you don't have to kick your shoes off because our shoes help you feel barefoot, they help you feel grounded, and they kind of solve that, that issue. But yeah, I mean, it's mostly for lifting and for the gym.
So what's the problem that you solve?
The problem is that people don't like their freaking stinky feet all over the floor when they're deadlifting, but they want to be grounded.
Okay, awesome. I actually think it's a great, like, you found a very specific problem like that people are having, right? Like you identified that, hey, people are taking off their shoes when they deadlift because they need to feel more barefoot, right, to do it better, right? So it's getting pretty specific, right? And you have a route to get to that path. But I think it's very easy for a company like Otishi, which they have a great product, they're killing it, but it would be very easy to say, like, hey, we have barefoot shoes, that look like a sock on the top, right? Like barefoot shoes. So
And how did that go?
Didn't go very well.
Yeah. And I think the pitfall there could be like, oh, well, barefoot shoes are trending. People who are into that kind of know what's going on. But like saying I have a barefoot shoe doesn't help somebody know what problem it's going to solve, right? It's just that there's lots of barefoot shoes out there. Why specifically is this barefoot shoe going to help me with my specific problem in the gym, right? And that's what we want to dial in, and they're doing a good job of that. So anybody else?
You gotta raise it loud and proud.
My wife has been operating a business for about 25 years called It's a Blast. These are paper rockets that are launched by compressed air. She was building it up pretty well, but then COVID hit, and because it involves bringing large groups of people together, it kind of destroyed the company, and her interest in it is waning, and it's available cheap if anybody wants to buy it. But first, I'd like to see a marketing approach that someone can do for her online to maybe change the majority of the sales right now are to schools, planetariums, things like that, where it becomes like a birthday party thing. So market as a solution for mothers, fathers that want to put on a really cool birthday party that no one else is doing, and that's the problem you would solve by buying one of the launchers and a box of the rockets.
Do your kids' birthday parties suck?
No, they're great. The kids absolutely love it.
I'm talking about like that
Right,
would be the problem you're solving.
Right, yeah, that's the problem it would be
Yeah.
solving.
Because if someone's like, no, I throw killer birthday parties, I got clowns, I got bouncy houses, I got all this other stuff, they're probably not the right ideal customer for you. Whereas for me, planning a birthday party for my kid is the most stressful thing in the world. I'd rather be spending, managing $100,000 a day in Facebook ads than have to plan my kid's birthday party because I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to do. Whereas like, hey, do you want an easy way to make your kid's birthday party phenomenal and memorable? That's a problem I need solved for me. So yeah, it's as simple as that. And that's where advertising can get the biggest problem with advertising right now is there's so much information and so many people telling you what you need to do that it needs to just be broken down into the most simplest solution, the simplest way for people to understand the advertising. Because it's like, oh, you have hooks, you have CPMs, you have your click-through rates, you also have, should we be doing TikTok shop, should we be doing Pinterest ads, should we be doing Facebook ads, is Facebook ads dead, like all that stuff. And so coming down to your advertising is just as simple as like, first steps is you have to identify what problem your product actually solves and getting specific with that. So
Yeah, I think those are.
yes.
What do you do when you are trying to solve multiple problems? Like, I can just give you an example. I have a swimsuit company, and I create all adjustable swimsuits. And I would say that the problems that I'm solving is one, helping swimsuits fit correctly, and then also boost confidence, and also so that women can enjoy being in the ocean and swimming. Those are kind of like three different problems. How would you go about handling that with different problems?
Great question. So the first one you said was the help swimsuits fit correctly. So, and we'll get into this because the next thing we're going to talk about is the 3 pillars of advertising. This is the main thing that this is what I wrote my book about on advertising was these 3 pillars, which are the foundation of advertising. But to quickly answer your question is you can ask that question, do you want a swimsuit that fits correctly, makes you feel confident, and tie it all together, right? You can just simply ask that question, and you can include all those questions in the same thing. Now, when you're doing the advertising, you might want to ask one of those questions in each separate ad so you can see which one actually matters. Because maybe the confidence thing is not what's getting people to buy, it's the adjustability. Maybe it's the fit. There's so many different things. But part of the way you can solve a lot of those things is with the creative. Like, if you want women to feel confident in their swimsuit, you should show women in your ads who are confident in their swimsuits, right? You see this with, like, the ads for, hair loss. They show guys with a head full of hair smiling. And I get a lot of those ads lately. Being an entrepreneur is stressful. And I've got 4 kids, and they're all 7 and under, with a 5th one on the way. So, it's just a good time. But you can show that visually as well. And we'll get into the creative side of the ads. So I think we should jump into the 3 pillars.
Yeah. I have one more topic I wanted to get into before that, but we'll get into that really quickly. But yeah, I think that's honestly what we'll move into a lot next is, like, when you have multiple problems, you want to test those in ads in a way that allows you to learn which is the actual problem that people care about, right? At the Myostorm example that Connor brought up, my product can theoretically help with everybody's type of pain. No matter what type of pain you're feeling, it theoretically can help. But if it solves all pain, kind of doesn't solve any. So we've tested specifically plantar fasciitis pain. How does that ad and landing page perform specifically versus knee pain versus neck pain? And we've narrowed it down to which one's performing the best, which problem do people care about the most, and then we can lean into that and iterate. And right now it's foot pain, right? Like, that's just the highest performing category that we've found of a problem solved for that specific product.
Because, to be honest, you may feel like it's this one, and you may want it to be this one, but in reality, it might be this one, and that one might be easier, and that's okay. That's what you want. You just need to find what actually works, because a lot of the decisions we make at Rep Labs are all data-driven. A lot of times in marketing, you're going to hear, well, I feel like I should do this. I think, so-and-so over there's website looks like this, and their social media is doing this, and they have 100,000 views on their last post, so maybe we should do something similar. There's so much data that you can pull the information from so that you can make decisions. This is why when we've taken over advertising, 9 out of 10 times with clients, we improve the marketing performance. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into that. I won't say we have 100%, like we've made every company crazy successful and exit and all this other stuff. But 9 out of 10 times, because we can read the data and see what's happening in the ads manager and all this other stuff, we can say, like, hey, you're focusing on the wrong thing. You need to fix here instead of here. And if you fix this, you're going to have much better results than if over here, like your branding, you don't need another rebrand. Jaguar's the perfect example of that. I'm sure everyone's seen their new branding. It sucks. I don't know why they came up with the decision to do that. They've been down in sales. The logo was not the problem. Anyways.
So yeah, and I briefly wanted to touch on, like, was it the Rockets? I think that's a good example because that's one that's very easy to, like, think like, oh, well, there's not like a problem that we're solving. It's just something that's fun, right? But, like, if we get down to it, we can actually, well, there probably is a problem we're solving, right? Like, why are people wanting to have fun? Like, what is going to convince somebody to want to play with this, right? We do talk about, like, this threshold as well as we said, like, people buy solutions to their problems, right? You either want to move somebody away from a pain or towards a pleasure, right? Those are the problems that you're solving. So I don't know everybody's specific brands or products, but, like, think about it in your head, right? Like, sometimes clothing and apparel can also be an exception to some degree. It's like, okay, well, what problem am I solving? It's not that, like, people need clothes and I'm, covering their nakedness, right? Theoretically, that's, like, the actual problem, but that's not what an apparel brand's trying to do. Usually it's more about a confidence thing, right? Like, hey, are you not comfortable and, you don't feel like you can express yourself the way that you want to? Without saying that, you can kind of help people feel that through your content, like Connor was saying. So the next thing I want to talk about before we go into the 3 pillars of advertising are just general marketing methods. We're going to talk a lot today about paid ads, and we'll tell you why. There's more marketing channels than just paid ads. There's organic social media, there's SEO, there's PR, there's influencer, there's all of these different things, and they all have their place, right? And all of those activities will kind of help build each other up.
They all suck.
in a nicer way, yes. They like, we really like to focus on paid ads, and there's a very specific reason why. I kind of described how I've wasted a lot of money on ads with advertising agencies. I've wasted just as much money on PR, influencers, organic social media, all of these things, and I think that money was wasted worse. The reason why is because when you're just starting a business, one of the biggest things you're trying to do is learn, right? You need to learn how to sell your product, right? You're learning which problem people are actually identifying with. You're learning who the right audience is. These are all things that you need to figure out. So every dollar that you spend, you want to at least be learning something from it. When you start putting a bunch of time, energy, and a lot of times money into things like organic social media, which, again, people should be doing organic social media. We're not saying don't do that. But before you know you're going to pay several $1,000s for an organic social media manager, think about what the reasons for that are. When you're posting organically pretty regularly, and we've experienced this with dozens and dozens of brands, and you hear this a lot where it's like, hey, my organic social media is crushing it, and I'm getting tens of thousands of views, hundreds, thousands of views, millions of views, no sales. Why not? Or, hey, I had this post go viral, and I got several $1,000s in sales, but that was several months ago, and I've never had it happen again. Why? Well, we don't know. Hey, I have been paying influencers and trying to do this commission thing and sending product to everybody, and I had this one influencer that just popped off and it went really great, but then it's never worked again. Why, right? Well, the same influencers posted something similar and it worked one time but not the other time. PR, right? Like, hey, like for me, one of my brands was on Shark Tank, crushed it. No other PR, news outlet, TV, anything ever produced any performance in ads. So my point is, a lot of these other efforts, while they can be really valuable, they can contribute to the overall strength of your brand. They're very, very difficult to track performance on, and it's very hard to have data-driven analysis from it. The reason we love paid ads, especially early, is because every dollar that you spend has multiple metrics about what's happening. And we'll talk a lot about this again later when we actually talk about running ads and the pitfalls that we see. You want to set up your advertising in a way that if you're spending dollars and if you're not making sales, at least you're gaining knowledge. So we approach advertising as not just like, hey, I'm going to throw money at the wall and hope that money comes back. Like most other marketing efforts sort of inherently are. There's just not a way to, it's throwing money at the wall, throwing efforts, hoping that something sticks and it pops off, but there's not really real data behind it. Ads, we want to set them up in a way and build an ad campaign that is data-driven, right? It's set up in a way for you to learn how to build this advertising marketing engine for future success. So that's why we really promote paid ads. So if you're thinking about like, hey, I want to start doing organic social media because I don't have a big budget, but I'm going to pay $1,000 a month to a social media manager. Well, maybe you might want to think about using that $1,000 on ads instead, because you might learn more out of it, right? Because if you spend $1,000 on social media and it doesn't get anywhere, what did you get? What did you gain out of it? You didn't learn anything. If you spend $1,000 on ads, at least now you know, like, hey, this audience wasn't working great. This creative that I was testing seemed promising, but wasn't quite there. Or this copy, right? Like you're slowly getting to an answer of how I can be more successful in the marketplace. Whereas a lot of these other efforts tend to be a lot of wasted time, energy, effort, and money. Not always. They all have their place. You should still be doing a lot of those other efforts. But if you're starting with something and have a small budget or small bandwidth, don't count out paid ads just because it's the most data-driven, scalable method for growth.
So 3 pillars of advertising. You have your audience, you have your creative, your destination. I'm going to go through each one and how to apply it, but also the data metrics that you could look at to specifically see where things are working or not working. So when we have worked with brands, I've probably audited 200 plus Facebook, Google, Pinterest, TikTok ad accounts. And whenever something's not working for a brand, let's say they're not getting any sales. Well, none of these pillars are working. Let's say they're getting some sales, but not at a profitable ROAS. One of the pillars is just broken. Now, if they're getting sales, but not as profitable as they want, they feel like they should be doing more, it's usually two of the pillars are broken, or one of the pillars is broken. And then when everything's cruising, 4 or 5x ROAS, and you're scaling and everything, all 3 pillars are working, and then you just need to gasoline on that fire and spend as much as you can on Facebook as it'll let you. So the first pillar is the audience pillar, and that's kind of what we've been talking about. Again, all of this is based on the foundation of that your product is not going to sell people, it's the solution to the problem that you're solving, right? So in terms of your audience, now a lot of people when they talk about audience, they think of demographics. They think of location, gender, age, what kind of car they drive. I mean, how many people, I'm sure, have made a customer persona? Yeah, those are worthless. They don't do anything. Who cares if your pretend customer, Sarah, is 27, likes going to Barnes & Noble and drinking coffee while in the corner of a book reading nook, and she has 5 cats and whatever, right? None of those things make a difference when it comes to your audience. Your audience really is the people who have the problem that your product solves, right? And again, going back to Milestorm, because it's one of the best examples and we've been working on it for forever, you need to understand what problem your product solves, but also speak the same language as them. Is Portuguese and Spanish the same language? No. I don't speak either, and they sound exactly the same to me. But they are very different. And yes, someone who's speaking Portuguese can sometimes understand someone who's speaking Spanish and vice versa, but it is very different. And that's the biggest problem that most people have when they're doing their advertising when it comes to their audience, is they're speaking close to the same language, but not the same. Again, going back to the knee pain, or let's do the foot pain with Milestorm. So one of the things we ran in ads was like, do you have plantar fasciitis? Does anybody know what that is? No. Some say yes, some say do. If you have plantar fasciitis and you've talked to a doctor, you know what plantar fasciitis is. If you don't, like me, you don't, and I still can't spell it correctly, even though like I have 15 ads that have all said plantar fasciitis. But if I said, does your foot hurt when you walk? I think everyone here can understand, like, yes, my foot hurts when I walk. That's very easy to understand. Both are the exact same thing. But half of this group just didn't even understand what I was saying, or doesn't even know what plantar fasciitis is. So when we ran ads like, do you have plantar fasciitis? The Milestorm Meteor Ball will help with plantar fasciitis. We didn't have a great reaction. But when we changed the ad to saying, do your feet hurt when they walk? People are like, yes, my feet hurt when I walk. Another one that we've tried is, do your feet feel like they're being stabbed? Didn't have as good as a reaction because that's not how people describe their pain. So when it comes to your audience, you need to understand what problem you solve, but you need to understand how that audience describes their pain, right? So I was just going to say, with your audience, you described it as you don't have to have your stinky feet out on the floor in the gym. Is that the way that they all describe it? Yes or no? I don't know. But like, that's where you can then test the different ways to say it, right?
Yeah. Ultimately, it's like with the customer persona thing, right? Like, ultimately, everybody's brand is going to have some, sort of customer. But I think the point is, from an advertising perspective, what we've found a lot of times is we have to put our expectations aside, right? Like our egos aside. I found my intuition when I'm like, oh, I feel like this would crush it, or like this is the angle we should take, or this is the ideal customer. Once we start spending dollars and see who's spending the dollars, I'm like almost always wrong, pretty much every time. So I've learned to not like let my guesses and my thoughts and like this theorizing of who the persona is and all of these things like necessarily define everything I'm trying to do. I'd prefer to let the data and the dollars tell me who's buying. And obviously you want to have some kind of starting place, right? An intuition. So having this concept of a customer persona or an ideal customer, you're going to want to have, but ultimately the dollars of ad spend are going to tell you who's actually purchasing the product, and Facebook and the algorithms or whatever advertising platform you're using will kind of help you figure that out. You just have to be aware of what to test, right? What types of language are you testing, and kind of let it go from there.
So we also want to talk about some of the metrics that you can look at. So just before this, I hope you don't mind me sharing, I jumped into his ads manager because, again, struggling to get new customers. So looking at his ads, one of the metrics that I look at for the audience is specifically CPMs, or cost per 1,000 impressions. So when you are running ads on any of the platforms, those platforms charge you for eyeballs. And so they just pretty much break it down. Here's your cost to get in front of 1,000 people, to get 1,000 eyeballs. Some audiences are more expensive, just like it's much more expensive to buy a house in Lehigh, Utah right now than it is in Wyoming. Why? Because no one wants to live in Wyoming. People want to live in Lehigh. So it's the same thing with all these platforms. There's some audiences that are more expensive because more people want to be around them. So for example, our brand, so we bought a company, we ran all the advertising for a company called JFlex. It sold after 2.5, 3 years of us advertising it. The new owners came in. They didn't listen to us. They ran it into the ground, and we bought it for like 9 cents on the dollar. Now we bought it back. So now we own it. So the audiences that we're targeting, you know, our ideal customer is home fitness, so we have to target people who have the same interests in home fitness, which, you know, some people would, in the past, they tried to target bodybuilding. Well, bodybuilders are not working out at home. They're working out at the gym. Power lifters, they're not working out at home. They're working out at the gym. They don't care about the products that we have. So, you know, we try and target. So one of the things that we did to fix their ads was we stopped targeting unrelevant audiences. And so our cost to get in front of 1,000 people cut in half, which then we got in front of more people, more eyeballs for the same cost, and we're able to improve ads. So that's the main metric we're looking at. A lot of times we get asked, like, what should my CPMs be? It is dependent on your brand, your industry. My rule of thumb is on Facebook ads, you should be around $20 to $25 for your CPMs. If you're higher than that, you have a problem. If you're lower than that, say thank you prayers every single day, because you don't always have a ton of control on that.
It also kind of depends on what you're optimizing for,
Yep.
primarily with the CPMs. But if you're optimizing for conversions in your advertising, then yeah, that's kind of the range you're looking at.
Yep. So, yeah.
You talked about like pain points and solving problems.
Mhm.
When you guys acquired the JFlex,
Mhm.
what was like the pain point that had the highest conversion rate when you were able to execute ads?
I'll get into that in 2 seconds. You're the man. You're reading my mind. Okay.
So that main metric, and we'll actually talk more about metrics later as well. We can get deeper into CPM because there's a lot of things that may affect that. But that's the primary metric we're looking at with this first pillar, which is your audience. So moving to the next pillar.
This is the creative, and now this is the part that everyone thinks is advertising, right? Your video, your image, your ads, like all that stuff, and that this is the most important thing. It's actually not. It's just the third one of 3 of the most important things. So your creative job is 2 parts. 1, to get people's attention, and 2, help people identify that they're your target, your ideal audience, that they have the problem they solve. That's the job of the ads. If your ads, it's as simple as that. So for example, let's talk about, so the first part is the hook, getting people's attention. And you see tons of different styles right now going on. One of them is the transition. I'm sure you've seen ads where somebody does, they have this organic post and somebody slides in, and then it transitions to them sliding in type of thing, or the lady in the pool splashing water, and then it cuts to somebody getting hit in the face with water and hey, you should buy our product, right? All of those things are there just to get attention. And we get asked all the time, well, what's the trend that's working right now? What's the best type of ad? And the thing is, it's always changing, and there's not really a right answer. Google, stop calling me. What's important is just standing out. So I've seen so many trends. There was memes ads where people used memes to get people to click on their ads. One of the ads that we've done that's been performing extremely well is just taking an iPhone and talking to the camera and being like, hey, do you struggle with hair loss? I've got something to help you with hair loss, right? It's organic, it's on your phone, it doesn't look like an ad. That's performed extremely well as we've done some where, you've got the camera and then you're holding the product and just talking about it, that one's been performing really well. We've done static ads where it's just a picture ad with the text on it. Like there's not a right answer. The biggest and most important thing is just looking different. And there's lots of different ways to do that, and that's where it comes to just being creative and testing lots of those different hooks.
Yeah, so the main components of creative there are like your ad copy, right? Like the text, right? What's written or what's showing up to people, and then the actual content. And there's so many different types of content, from UGC to premium, studio level stuff. And Connor's described some of the things that are working now, but usually that fluctuates. The key to your creative is this click-through rate metric, right? So when you're running ads, you have a very clear way to know, is my creative working? Because you can see it in the click-through rate metric, right? If people aren't clicking on your ad, it's not doing a good enough job of convincing them that you solved their problem, right? You can dig into that a little bit further. It's like, okay, if I have a really bad click-through rate, what's the issue? Are people not watching the video at all? That means your hook's probably bad and you need to test some new hooks, right? Getting people to watch longer. If you have people watching your ad longer, but nobody's clicking on it, it means you're throughout maybe your ad is engaging, but it's not convincing them that they care about your product enough, right? But so there's metrics all along the way that will help you understand, is my creative doing a good enough job? And if it's not, there's lots of levers you can pull to try to fix and adjust that. Again, going back to, there's data points behind everything you're doing in ads, right? That you can see and visualize and test and try to tweak and change.
Yeah, so that's, you have your hook, and then you have like the second part of your ad, which is just, again, to get people to say like, yes, I have that problem that you are solving. I'm sure everyone has seen the pooping unicorn commercial with Harmon Brothers, right? After that, I don't know you guys were in advertising then, but like everyone thought, oh, you just have to be funny with your ads now. You have to just do funny ads. Well, I saw a lot of ads after that were, funny, but they didn't actually sell the product. And the reason that Harmon Brothers ad did so well is they just took some humor to help disguise the fact that it was an ad. But they were very clear on what problem they solved with their ad is, hey, if you struggle pooping, and everybody who's like, yeah, I struggle pooping, they all watched. And because it was funny, but also it actually helped you identify that they were your ideal customer. The same thing is with infomercials in general. Infomercials are one of the greatest ad formats ever created. I love infomercials. If you want to learn how to sell something well, watch infomercials. And a great example of that is the Snuggie. Does anybody remember the Snuggie? When you watch the Snuggie commercial, it starts off listing all of these problems that you have. Do you get cold when you're sitting this? Do you reach for the remote and the blanket falls off? Do you, they just go through all these problems, and it makes it really cheesy and really corny. There's black and white, and it was such bad production. But they hit all these pain points that people are like, yes, I don't like being able to not have my arms when I'm under the blanket. It's really hard to read a book while trying to get my arms under, but then the book out and all this other stuff. The ad and Snuggie killed it because they were very focused on this problem solving. And it's just a blanket. It's a backwards robe. That's all it is. It's a robe that you wear, you just twist it around. But their advertising was incredible because they were so good at telling people, if you have this problem, we can fix it. And they just did it in a different format. But you can do the same thing with your ads, right? Do you hate not feeling comfortable in your swimsuit? Personally, no, I feel great. I'm not your ideal customer. But people who say, yes, I have that problem, they're going to pay attention and they're more likely going to click on your ad. So when you're doing your creative, this is the way that we always like to start when we get a brand new ad account or a brand new client. This is how we generally launch our campaigns, especially if they don't have any data or anything that we can see what's worked in the past. We'll take the exact same ad and just do the most basic ad. And most of you have never done this type of ad before. Most businesses don't do this ad. Just ask a question. Do you struggle with X? Our product will help with that. That is the format of your first ad you should ever run. And you can run 3 or 4 or 5 with all of the different things that you think the problem is. And then all you have to do is read the data. What had the highest click-through rate? Who actually clicked on the ad? So with JFlex, for example, there's a couple different products. One of them is it's called the Cross Grips. It's portable pull-up handles. When we launched ads, we did, do you want to build a bigger back at home? We also did, do you want a pull-up bar that doesn't damage your doors? We also did, do you want to be able to take your workout anywhere? Because they're travel-friendly and stuff. And for me, I genuinely thought, because I like to lift weights and everything, it was going to be the bigger back because that's who I am, and why we have a big old gym in our office. But what people actually clicked on was they didn't want damage to their doors. And we dug into it more. It's like, oh, well, if someone's renting and they have the typical pull-up bars that they put on the doors, it damages the door frames. So now 99% of our ads for Cross Grips are all based on it doesn't damage your door, right? Because that's the one that worked the best. Even though my ego was a little hurt, I was hoping I was right. I was wrong, and that's okay. The other product is the Hyperbell bar. It turns your dumbbells into a barbell. Now, there's a couple different things. It saves space. It expands your workout, like the workouts you can do. You don't have to. It saves you money because you don't have to spend $300-400 on a barbell set. And so one of the most recent tests that I've been doing with it is specifically about glutes and building a bigger glute, because there's a certain type of workout, which is hip thrusts, that you can't do with just dumbbells. So our ads are, if you want to build a bigger glute, but you only have dumbbells, this is the perfect one. So I'm testing a couple different iterations of that to see how that works. Yeah.
When you're doing those, do I say pattern?
Sure.
When you're doing those different tests, are you A/B testing, or are you just making different ads in the same ad set? Or is that the same thing?
That's the same
Okay.
thing. You
I know
can
Facebook has like an A/B testing feature, and I never had to do that. I don't know how to do that correctly.
It's trash.
Okay.
I throw them all
Good to
into
know.
the same ad set because I want it to be as close to the same as possible. Their test, it's clunky. You can throw all of the ads in the same ad set. The main thing is that you want to see is like, do you want it? You want to give it as much of the exact same variables that are the same, except for the one thing you're testing. Because if you're testing two things at a time, you're testing nothing.
Right.
So if you like, and this is where a lot of creative and everything makes a lot of mistakes, is they'll create an ad where ad A is about building the glutes and ad B is about saving space, but one's a video and one's an image and one has
Different audience.
a girl and one has a guy. Like, you want it to be the exact same. So you can do literally the exact same picture and just change the text. That's like one of the easiest ways to do it. And the fastest ways, get it 1,000 impressions per ad, and you can see pretty quickly. And then you take that winning ad, and then you test different ad formats. Is it better under a video? Is it better under an image? Is it better under an image video? Is it better under an influencer? Is it better like faceless UGC or, you know? But once you first do that first round, you know the better selling point because it's been tested and that was the only difference. And then you can get into more fun and exciting ways to make it creative
And you're
exciting.
testing just one of those three pillars is the only thing that you're changing, right?
On the creative side, yeah,
On
it's
the
that.
creative.
It's the first thing I'm usually testing is what's the main problem, because I want to know,
Right.
do people care more about the door not getting damaged or building a buffer back? Because if it's one of the two, then I can make way more tests on like trying to just improve and get people's attention when I know what's the actual main pain point that we're solving.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Was the portability like second in line to the back?
They were about the same. It wasn't that much different. No, so door damage was like the biggest thing. The back building and like the portability really wasn't that big. People did like the space saving. So the fact that it didn't like take up a lot of space, but that, so we use that quite a bit as well in the marketing, but as like a secondary benefit.
So one of the things that was kind of said, but not directly to think about with creative is there's lots of trends out there. There's lots of fads. There's lots of people pitching the next big growth hack. There's lots of marketing gurus out there who make their money making up marketing tips. Honestly, like they're a lot of times not making their money doing marketing. They make their money making content, so they're making stuff up. So it's really easy to get caught in this traps of like, oh, I want to go after that trend. Oh, I want to do this thing. All of those things like are good to be aware of, right, and use in your testing. Like, but so your style of creative, the style of hooks, all of those are gonna come and go, right? Like, focusing on trends isn't like a really strong way to build your marketing foundation. The ultimate principle that we've seen throughout the years, right, with the Harmon Brothers example, the infomercial example, like everything is ultimately the core fundamental point of marketing and sales is you need to convince somebody that you're solving their problem. The format that you do that may change and go, and you'll want to stay on top of those trends, but like don't get too sucked into the next tip, the next growth hack, the next marketing trend. If you can stay true to the foundation of how do I best convince this person that I solved their problem, as long as you stick to that, you'll be able to kind of weather the storm of fluctuating marketing trends.
Yep.
So any questions, more questions about audience or creative before we get into the next pillar?
I can talk loud, sorry. Is the goal to narrow it down to one problem that you're solving, or do you always just have a cycle of problems you're kind of rotating through?
The more specific of a problem you can solve, the better across the board. But there might be more things that you can test as like an advertiser and like doing the marketing and stuff. You always looking to improve, right? And there might be some new things that like, a great way to do it is look at your reviews. Again, ChatGTP is one of the greatest inventions for marketers ever. You can literally just say, hey, ChatGTP, look at all these Amazon reviews. You can do it for your own brand. You can do it for your competitors. Find me the top 5 reasons why people were interested in buying and the top 5 reasons people gave it a 5-star review. That makes it a whole lot easier to come up with these problems that you're solving and your ideal customer. Because then again, if people are like, I bought this because no swimsuit fit, again, using your example, great, you now know that because that's what the actual feedback is. So reviews and testimonies, like at the beginning, when you don't have any of that, you got to go off your gut and be like, I believe these are the things. But the more information you get, the more you can learn. So go to your reviews, go to your competitors' reviews, and then you can search it super fast with ChatGTP and like get a ton of information and skip so many steps. So, yes. You're good. I need to do some cardio.
If you are testing products and which pain would be the best, is there like a certain benchmark with your ROAS or something that you're like, okay, this is it? Or
Great question. So the question was what's the benchmark for ROAS? So your ROAS or your cost per acquisition is not the main metric you should be looking at. And I know in a lot of the marketing people like, we lowered our CPA, we got higher ROAS, that's like the fancy thing. But that is a reactionary metric to front end metrics, right? Like in basketball or football, the end score is just the outcome. But what determined that end score was all of the times that BYU turned the ball over in the end zone against Kansas, right? That's a much more important thing for them to focus on. Too soon, yeah. Still annoyed. It's a much more important thing to focus on than the actual end score and the fact that they didn't get in the end zone at the very end of the game and on that 4th down, right? You want to focus on those front-end things. So the things we look at for click-through rates, thanks for asking because I forgot to mention, there are some standard benchmarks for your ads. And again, all these come with a grain of salt because there's exceptions to every rule. But if you have a 0.5% link click-through rate in your Facebook ads, you're missing the mark completely. You are not even close. If you have a 1% click-through rate, you're probably hitting the problem decent, but your creative, your hook, there's some things that you can change there to try and improve it, right? Try different maybe video, try different hooks, things like that. If you're at a 1.5% link click-through rate, great. Awesome. That is a phenomenal link click-through rate in today's marketing and advertising. Again, also, there's like some asterisks in that. One, you have to be optimizing for conversions. If you're optimizing for link clicks or landing page views or add to carts, you're throwing away your money and it's worthless. Don't do that. And those numbers are going to be much more inflated. Be optimizing for the very last thing you can track, like purchases, or if you're doing lead generation, lead gen. Also, if you're using really clickbaity ads where like you're disguising the product so people can't really see it, you're going to have a higher click-through rate, but they're going to be also less quality traffic. That's why I don't actually run any of those transition ads that we were talking about. Like you showed me one where a donkey falls over and then the person rolls over and is like, here's the product. Those are really gimmicky, and they will get higher click-through rates, but the quality of that click is lower. And not all traffic is created equal, unfortunately. So, Pinterest traffic is not nearly as quality as Facebook traffic, but Pinterest traffic is also a lot cheaper, so it balances out. Influencer traffic, we had a brand that we were working with. It was AfroPix. Our good buddy Shaq started it, and they had, what was the lady's name? She's from Frozen. Yeah, the blonde one?
Kristen Bell.
Kristen Bell. It was Kristen Bell. My daughter hasn't watched Frozen yet. I have 3 boys and then a girl. She'd much rather watch DuckTales with her brothers. But so she did this post about the AfroPix. It got like 10 million views and tons of traffic and $10 in sales. Yeah. So when I say influencers suck, it comes with some baggage. So,
Is that so? As far as like influencer sucking and stuff, is that more everyone in general, or is it because she was a terrible influencer with a bad audience to sell an Afro pick?
Yeah. Yeah.
all of the above.
That's the problem with influencers is who knows, right? Because, and again, do all influencers suck? Obviously, there's people who have crushed it doing almost solely influencer marketing, right? We've had people who have influencers that post and it has great results. It's just a lot of times, I think influencers used to be fantastic 5-10 years ago as they were coming up, and just the influencer world has sort of spiraled downhill a bit. But the biggest issue with influencers is that it's very unpredictable. It's highly likely that in that scenario, it was like not the ideal influencer for that, market, obviously.
You have a better chance of just going to Vegas and putting it all in black. 50-50. Whereas with influencers, I think for every 10, 15 influencers who post, you'll generate a sale. That's been our experience. Again, if you can get lucky. I mean, Nike was the first person to they went all in on Michael Jordan. It was influencer marketing and it killed it. And then all the other brands were like, oh, we got to get these athletes signed to these deals and stuff. Well, one of my buddies is really connected to the golf world where all of the big golf brands, they're going to be cutting all of their contracts with their big athletes soon because they're not getting the return. It worked for one person, so they're like, oh, it must work for everybody. And that's the problem with the marketing world is oh, I see so-and-so doing it, so we should do it. Oh, my competition's website looks like that. We should do it.
Yeah. So again, is there a place for influencer marketing? There's ways that you can make it work. So we still technically do influencer marketing with most of our brands. There's just a smart way that we go about it, so we ensure that we're not just wasting dollars. And then the other biggest benefit is we want to make sure if an influencer posts stuff about our brand that we just have rights to the content so we can run it as an ad. Because an influencer's post that we can run it as an ad crushes it. The post itself, it's the gamble, right? It can be good, but we would prefer nail down your advertising engine so you have a revenue and a profit stream coming in, and then if you want to start testing and gambling on how to get an influencer strategy to work and support that, awesome. But I would start out, if you're going to use influencers, do it with a smart mentality, not burning money. You're not going to pay retainers to influencers, and you always want to make sure you get the rights to use their content as ads, and then you're not totally wasting those dollars if the post doesn't go well, because now at least you can turn it into an ad.
Yeah, you're then getting content. So with our brands, we'll send people product for free, which doesn't cost us a ton, but we have to own the rights to the footage that we can use as ads as we see fit. We've just completely stopped paying influencers. They're oh, we want $3,000 for the posting. Nope. But we can generate a lot of traffic. I can get way more traffic with the $1,000 with Facebook ads. That's way more quality, more targeted. So we just don't do that anymore.
And not to over nail this topic, but what we've kind of found is like a lot of influencers nowadays, they like, if they want to work off a commission, awesome. A lot of them don't. Why? Because they're not confident that they'll make any money on the commission, right? And if they're not making money on the commission, it means they're not making you any money, right? So if you find an influencer that's willing to post and share and do stuff off commission, usually it's a better bet. One, because at least you're not going to waste any money by testing it, or two, they're confident that they're going to get you sales. We've just found so many times it's like, oh, I want a $3,000 retainer, $4,000, $5,000 retainer. They post and it like gets nothing. It's like, okay, why am I paying you if you're not getting me any results? So it's just been, we've spent, again, lots of dollars across lots of brands in all kinds of industries and seen the same patterns every time. So there's strategic ways to utilize influencers, but.
Yeah, we had a really big bodybuilder who won a ton, and his agent reached out to us like, hey, we want to do stuff with your product. And we're like, sure, like we only do commission. He's like, well, my guy's going to blow it up. He's going to make it huge. It's going to be the biggest thing. It's great. It's amazing, blah, blah, blah. And then we're like, cool. Well, and the influencer was on board to do some, commission, but then his manager's like, it's $100,000. And we're like, well, if he's so good, well, yeah, no, everybody we've worked with, we've blown them up. Great. Then you should have no problem earning that through commission. No, we just don't do that. Great. We won't do it then. Have a great day. And we probably saved a whole lot of money. So, again, going back to it, not all traffic is created equal. So that's why, there's some caveats to those metrics of 0.5%, 1%, and 1.5%. And again, based on link click-through rates. So the next pillar is the destination. So your creative, your ad is king, but your website is queen. You need both to be able to drive sales. And this is where most brands, I'd say 80% of the time when I go look at advertising for brands who are spending tens of thousands of dollars a day on ads where they're not getting the results they want, the biggest issue has nothing to do with their ads. They're getting just fine click-through rates. They have low CPMs. Where they're struggling is their website is not designed and built to convert. So there's three main pages that people send most of their traffic to. And most of the time you shouldn't send them to any of them. Number one, your home page. If you are advertising your products and sending them to your home page, just put yourself in their shoes. They saw an ad for a certain specific swimsuit. They thought it was really cute. They go to the homepage. Now they have to look through your entire website to find that swimsuit. We live in the age of TikTok, and everybody has ADHD. No one has that time, and no one's going to keep that focus. So when you send people to your homepage, you are not going to get people to convert very well. Number two is a collections page. This is the one exception that I'm okay with sending people to this page if it's the right fit. And it's mostly like clothing brands who have a ton of different clothing products and options. And that only works if you're not advertising an individual product. So let's say you're advertising the white shoes. You should be sending people to a place to easily find the white shoes. But if you're just sending them the collection where they have to then find the white shoes through hundreds of products, it's going to cause issues. It's going to cause friction. So don't do it. But if you're advertising a wide variety, doing lots of different styles or products, one of the brands we run Facebook ads for and everything is called Brixley Bag. I don't know if any of you have heard of Brixley Bag. We do all of their advertising. I will send people to the collection page when I'm showing lots of different bags of theirs because I just want them to see the variety and then let them shop. So rarely do you need to do that. Most brands don't need to. There are occasions we do. The third and worst place to send your traffic to is the individual product page, which surprises most people when we say this. But your individual product page is not designed to sell. Most product pages are mirrored off of Amazon's product page, which is very simply designed, right? You have a picture of the foot or the shoe, right? You have the title. You might have some star reviews or whatever, and then you'll have the price point, right? And then you'll have the description and then the buy now button, right? That's how most product pages are designed. And I bet you $1,000 that if I looked at 90% of your ads, most of you would be sending traffic to a page very similar to this. And this will not convert. The reason being is because people need this information, the problem that's going to solve, the solution. They need to make sure that the right traffic before they need to see this price point. The last piece of information anyone needs in order to make a buying decision is the price point. The price point is always at the very top. And there are people who would buy the product, but you haven't sold them. Because again, your job of your ads is A, to get attention, and B, help people identify that you're going to solve their problem to get them to the website. It's your website's job to actually sell the product. And most of you are showing the price point before they're able to actually see any of the sales copy. So our specific style of we build landing pages or sales pages specific to the product we're advertising. And we get a lot of pushback from our clients when we talk to them about this, and we build them the website or the landing page that we're going to send the traffic to because of a couple different things. But we've probably managed $20 to $25 million of ad spend across 20, 30 plus brands testing this specific style of landing page, and we've never lost a test. We've always improved the conversion rate, specifically around new customer acquisition. And we're going to give you that formula of how to design that page. If you go to pretty much any of our brands that we're running the ads for, you'll see this type of landing page. So, best way to do is probably draw it. Do you want to draw?
I think you're better.
Oh, that's a
Better shot at that.
maybe. All right.
An eraser.
Yeah, erase it. So, again, the foundation of we're solving a problem. Actually, you know what would be really good is if you pulled up JFlex's website. So while he's pulling up, we'll give you an example of one of our landing pages. So, I think that's yours, Jono. Okay, so you have your very first section of your website, okay? You have each is a different section. So this first landing page that you send traffic to should be all about the problem that you solve, right? Do you have knee pain? The meteor will help fix your knee pain. Simplest terms. Do you struggle with hair loss? This will help you with your hair loss. Speaking from real experience, guys. It's a very simple, first things first, you get there. Pull up the cross scripts page. That's probably the best one. The guy's not there. Okay. So your first section is all about the problem that you solve. The second section, you can have some as seen on actually. So if you've been sponsored somewhere, you've been news organization stuff, have some logos there showing it off that you're like, hey, we've been seeing some. It's not a big thing, but it's nice. So that's your first section. Second section. Your third section is a product description. Now, you can have a picture of the product, all that, like a typical product page, but without showing the price point again. The purpose of this, because people need to know what problem you're solving. The second thing they need to know is what your product is and how it's going to solve it. So the Meteor is a vibrating heated massage ball that helps reduce knee pain. So they know exactly what the product is, because if they don't know what the product is, it's hard to make a buying decision. The next thing you need is they need to know how that product is going to solve that problem. So a lot of people call them different things, but feature benefits. The Meteor has vibration. That is a feature. The benefit is that vibration helps relax the muscle, which then helps relieve the tension in the IT band that pulls the pressure off the knee, right? The Meteor also has heat. That is a feature. The heat helps with blood flow, which then helps more healing enzymes come to the product or the the sore muscle, which then can help relieve pain. 3, it's the ideal size to have trigger point reliefs and is perfect for rolling out so that you can get deep into the IT band, which helps relieve pressure on your knee so that you can have less knee pain, right? And some of your products, you can have 5 or 6, 3 or 4. It's all different depending on the product. But that's where you have, in these situations with the swimsuit, you're solving that problem where it's fit. Well, these are how come it helps with the fit. The next thing that people want to see is, okay, you're solving my problem. This is what the product is. This is how come that product solves my problem. Next thing, has it solved the problem for other people like me? And this is where you have testimonials. Right? This is great. Best type of testimonials are video testimonials. This is where influencers can be great. If you can put their testimonial on your website so people can see that it solves their problem for other people. You know, because like, oh, well, it could work for me, but has it worked for other people? Next thing they need to know is what it's like working with you. Right? This is where it's like things are important like shipping, returns, warranties, all that stuff. Those are all important things, not the most important thing. But again, all of these need to come back to this main point. So when we're running ads for Milestorm, well, then we get down to the very last thing, which is the price point. No one should see your price point until they've gone through all of this sales copy. Ever. So, so let's kind of go through this. This is on our, well, actually, I'll go to the back to Milestorm first. So when we're running ads for knee pain, we have a landing page specifically for knee pain, where everything is about knee pain. When we're running ads for foot pain, we have a landing page which is literally just copy and paste, change the pictures out for like more relevant pictures, and then changing the copy to be about foot pain. Still has heat, vibration, and trigger point release, but it's about the foot pain.
So I have the Milestorm page pulled up right now. You'll notice that I think I was a little bit distracted when I was kind of walking around trying to figure stuff out. So I don't know everything that you talked about. But we have specific landing pages that we're sending ad traffic to. So this page, like if you just navigate it how I did directly from the website, isn't going to be exactly what somebody on an advertising journey is. This is a much more broad, assuming that somebody came to our homepage from a more broad source. Presumably they already have knowledge about the brand, so it can be a broader type of experience. But if you were to see an ad, this headline would be specific to foot pain, right? If you saw a foot pain ad or whatever. So I think, did you want to go through this page or back on the cross scripts page? Because I think that's a better example of like.
So, as you saw, pull-ups anywhere, anytime, no installation, no damage, just results with cross grips. Versatile, compact, door-friendly cross grips for your home or on-the-go pull-up handles are easy to attach, travel-friendly, easy to store, full range of pull-up options. So again, you can hit a couple different pain points and everything if you can make it still flow and sound good or if they're very related. But about 3 months ago, that said, build a bigger back with pull-ups at home. We changed it, and it doubled the conversion rate because it was more what people actually need.
So then we come down and we start hitting specific, this is where we're more feature benefit related, right? So it's like, now we can get into the feature benefits. We don't lead with that, we lead with the pain point, and then each of the feature benefits promotes that original kind of topic. So we'll go through some of the things here. Again, Connor's touched on this. The goal is when somebody sees your ad, you again have a second or two, and you've convinced them, you've interested them enough to say, okay, I'm interested in this, they might be solving my problem. The goal of the website is to like convince them and to give them no option. By the time they see the price point, they need to be sold. So they're like, right, if somebody lands and they see the price point right away, that's the first decision-making thing they have is a price point. So if they're like, that's too expensive, they don't get through any of the information, you're gonna lose the sale, right? The job of this, all of this information is to give them so much detail and information and hit these headline pain points. By the time they get to the bottom and see the price, they're so sold on it that they don't care what the price is, right? So
Yeah, so as you can see, there's no way for them to skip to the price point unless they scroll through everything. I don't let people skip the process of being sold. Because yes, like if somebody jumps on a call with me to see if like, hey, can you do our advertising? You can build a website? Sure. And they're like, what's the price point? It's like, well, let's first figure out what you need. Well, I just need to know how much it's going to cost. Okay, well, what problem are you trying to solve? I just need to know how much it costs. $12 million, is, have a great day. Like, they're not the right kind of client for me, but I need to understand exactly what problem they actually are having with their website, exactly what they need, what effort I'm going to have to put into their website. If they just need like new product pictures or website pictures, that's different than they need me to build an entire landing page or sales page about their product. Do I need to write all the copy? Do they already have that? So in the same selling process with anything, you need to be able to sell people on the product and what problem you're solving before you give them the price point. Yep.
This is interesting to me because it's definitely, it seems like more of an e-commerce thing. Because I've looked at different landing pages and structures and why people structure different landing pages the way they do. And a lot of the times people suggest you should build a landing page and have multiple call to actions as you're scrolling throughout to give them earlier opportunities to opt in. But I think that might be more service-based companies.
Yes, so in the service base, the main selling that you are going to have to do is probably on the phone. So that's where you need to get them to. So in a service base, yes, you want them to get on the phone as quickly as possible because it's just so unique. You want to be able to talk to them. Like I would never advertise like Rep Labs services and then put a price point at the end because it's going to be so different for every client. I don't want to put them in a box. So our production company, Sipo Studios, we have a full production studio with a giant robot arm and stuff down in Springville. It's very basic, shows our work, call to actions everywhere because we need to get people on the phone and into our studio where we can actually do the full selling. But yeah, this was actually when we acquired JFlex, when we first parted ways with the new owners of JFlex, this was one of their bigger sticking points is we had landing pages just like this and they're like, well, we need more call to actions so people can add to cart quicker. And we're like, no, we need to be able to sell people on the product. And if we let them skip these steps of seeing like the comparison chart or all of these different things, they're going to not buy. And so they're like, well, let's just run a test. And we're like, okay, sure, fine. So we did a split test. One page had all of the add to cart buttons throughout from the very beginning, and then the other one didn't have any. What was really interesting is on ours, we had double the conversion rate of people actually purchasing, but theirs had more people adding things to their cart. And they were like, hey, we're getting more people to add to the cart. It's winning. We're like, but it's not converting more. But yeah, but we're getting people to add to their cart more. So that's good. I'm like, yes, but we want people to buy. Who cares if someone adds it to their cart? We want people to buy. So we had some friction there with them. But yeah, so in all the landing pages we build, we don't let people skip steps. You cannot let them skip to the end before they've been sold on the product.
So just to reiterate this is, again, I think Connor mentioned probably one of our biggest sticking points. Almost every time we bring on a new client or do an audit, people resist us on this, where we're like, just move the price point to the bottom. Like sometimes even if they have good sales copy, it's just, we just want you to move it down. They push against it like, well, that's not what everyone else is doing. Oh, that's not how it is on Amazon. And you can't compare usually your brand to like big enterprise brands or the ones who are crushing it, or even Amazon, because they're all spending tens of millions of dollars in advertising in different formats that people are now used to. So like formatting your website based off of Amazon just doesn't compare. So I was also, when we first started, didn't believe this. So I pushed back against Connor greatly. And when I first brought him on and he was doing advertising for me, he built a landing page for Milestorm that was converting 5%. We had another group come in that was like really excited to build us a new website that was just going to look awesome, like super cool content, all these like fancy features. I mean, no offense to Connor, but like the landing page, sales page that he built wasn't like the most attractive, like it wasn't the sexiest landing page, but it was it hit all of the, too close to the speaker? Sorry if that's bugging anyone. So these people came in and like, oh, we can make it look incredible and it's going to be so awesome. And I was very early on sold on that. So spent 20 grand on a website. They launched it and went from 5% to 0.2% the next day. And we were like, we need to go back. We need to change it back. And so like, well, we got to give it some time. We'll test some things. We'll do some things, tweak, change. And it got up to like 0.5%. They're like, oh, it's improving. And we're like, that's not good. So we literally just switched it back to the old landing page format. Looked like, I would say, definitively, if you just ask somebody which one looks better, 100% of people would have said this other one. But the landing page that was built in this format converted 10, 20 times higher. Every time we've gone, and there's been many brands that we've done as simple as they'll push back, oh, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. We literally will just move the product placement that has the price point to the bottom of their sales page. Like on average, it's doubling conversion rates. So,
And during that time, we were spending thousands of dollars a day in ads and doing a 3 to 4 to 5 ROAS. That one change cost us in potential revenue probably upwards of 150 grand. So, like I said, we've tested this concept with millions of dollars of ad spend, and it has never lost in improving the conversion rate.
There can be, again, like we'll say there's exceptions to every rule. In the case of exceptions is like if you have a very low price point product and that's your selling point, that you're like way cheaper than everybody else and stuff, that could be a place where it like makes sense to display that higher, right? It's just not common, right?
Sorry, I talk loud, but I'll use the mic. Okay. I think it's because Black Friday is next week that this is kind of on my mind. But what does this look like when, yes, you're promoting your products, but you're more promoting a sale, and the sale is site-wide? What does this look like for that?
So when we do these types of landing pages, JFlex is one of those brands where all of our customers are mainly new customers because they buy the Hyperbell bar, they buy the cross grips. They're not coming back next month to buy another one. With some brands that have a higher repeat customer rate, they'll keep their website as is with the normal collection stuff and everything because they have repeat customers. And for returning customers, you do want to make it as easy as possible for them to come back and buy and make that as easy peasy lemon squeezy as possible. But that's why we create the landing page. Pull up Proto. So that's why we create separate landing pages that are hidden from the rest of the website where we send all of our ad traffic to those places. Because even when it's Black Friday, yes, the sell is important, and that will get more people to click on it. But if they don't like the product, it doesn't matter how discounted your product is if it's not solving a problem for them. For example, well, I'll show this one. So this is one of the brands that we're partnered on. It's protein powders, protein pancakes. Oh, delicious. Click on the protein powders. I want to go to the landing page. So this is the home page. And we send people here. They scroll down. Did you go to the... Okay. So this is the home page where I don't send any traffic. We have the product options right under the second fold. I don't send traffic here because the only people who are going here are returning customers. The entire sales page that we send traffic to is identical to this, except this one section is not there. So you scroll down. You've got sales copy, faster growing, natural, high-quality ingredients, more things, all that, testimonials. So the landing page I send traffic to all goes to this, where this section doesn't exist at the top. So again, you can still have both. Again, for your repeat customers, the sell is important because they already have your product. But if it is a new customer, even with Black Friday, I still send everybody to these landing pages because the Black Friday is just the cherry on top. The sale is just the cherry on top. If you can only get people to buy because of discounts, you probably still need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what's the main problem that you're solving. If everything you're advertising is discounts or deals, great. That's a nice little shortcut sometimes. And when you're in cash crunches or like you just need to generate some sales, sure. But the long-term problem that you need to fix is what's the actual problem that your product solves. So then, the nice thing also, a little tip, if you scroll to the top, we haven't started the Black Friday sale for this is like one brand we haven't scrolled all the way to the top, Jono. So we have that sell fall sale, 10% off your first code. This is for first-time buyers. We'll usually change those out for like the Black Friday sale. So even your existing traffic that you're sending with your ads can still take advantage of the Black Friday sale because it's advertised on the banner, the announcement bar in the website.
So we've touched on it briefly. Going back to these 3 pillars, the main metric we're looking at that's vital to see with your destination pillar is that conversion rate. We've kind of described how we will separate the journey for people coming to the homepage versus landing pages. And one of the really important reasons that we do that is so we have a better understanding of what conversion rate is. Again, hopefully you're comfortable with this. We kind of looked at your account earlier, and it's like he has a great conversion rate on his website. But seeing that can be slightly misleading because there's a really high returning customer rate, which is really inflating that. So what we really care about is what is your conversion rate on new customers? When everybody is funneled through the homepage and all your ad traffic is going to the same place, it's really hard to know what the difference is there. So when you build a unique landing page for every ad or problem that you're testing, you can go into the reports in Shopify or whatever you're seeing and seeing, okay, what's the conversion rate on people who came to my website, specifically landed on this page? So you know exactly what your new customer conversion rate is, and not the entire inflated conversion rate of people who may be coming back and whatnot.
Yeah, and so the main metric we look at is, like Jono said, the conversion rate. There's some caveats to all of this. There's always exceptions. So for example, if you have a product that you're selling on your website and is also selling on Amazon, 30 to 40% of your sales that would normally buy on your website are leaving and buying on Amazon simply because they know they get free 2-day shipping, unlimited exchanges and returns, and they get it in a day or 2. So when you're doing e-commerce brands, you have to take that into account of what is a good conversion rate for your website. For new app, like I think Shopify is like across the board conversion rates like 1%. But that takes into so many accounts of like the big brands that have like 1 million returning customers and all this other stuff. So our metric is like, we like to have a 1.5 to 3% conversion rate on new customer. Again, that varies depending on if the product's on Amazon and we're losing sales to Amazon, because you will. So it's a little different for everybody, but if you only have the product on your website, you can get up to, I mean, like we had with Milestorm, we were upwards of 5% before we put things on Amazon, before we lost sales to Amazon with this style. So again, and it doesn't matter, like Jono said though, unless your main selling point is a price point and you're like, we're super cheap, buy us because we're the cheapest, that's a terrible business to get into because someone can always do it cheaper, but that's the only time like price point is a selling point. Everything else, price point's at the bottom.
Yeah, the other thing that can change what an acceptable conversion rate is your AOV, right? How expensive is your product? I mean, we have a brand we're advertising for that gets like a 0.1% conversion rate. 0.2, but they have like a 10 ROAS because their product's $1,000, right? So they get 1 conversion and it is great, right? But higher price point products are naturally going to have a much lower conversion rate because it's a harder sell, but when they do convert, you have way more margin. And then if you're on the lower price point, you'd expect to usually have a higher conversion rate just because it's low barrier entry. It's not as hard of a decision for people to make. They're more willing to take a chance on it and so on and so forth. So lots of different factors that go into that. And the other thing to remember is that a lot of these things can affect each other. Like Connor said before, right? If you are in your audience, you're targeting or optimizing for the wrong stuff, you're going for engagement, your conversion rate's probably going to look horrible, right? You might get tons of people to your website, but it's going to be unqualified traffic. Same kind of on the creative level, right? If you're finding that your ads are getting lots of clicks, but it's because they're very gimmicky, like trendy, like generic, like people watched it because it was eye-catching, but they didn't really care about your product. You might get a lot of people to click on the ad, but they didn't care about your product, so when they get there, they're not going to buy anything, right? So like this, they kind of affect each other, but there's usually, again, enough data points that you can kind of determine what's going on and set up tests to kind of figure that out.
Yep. So this is, when I wrote my book, like my first book was like 6-7 years ago. The second one, which was based on this, was about 5 years ago. We're still using these same principles today. Like this is, no matter how much trends change, how much platforms change, whether you're on Pinterest ads, which are killing it right now, But everyone's focused on TikTok ads, so, but whatever it is, those are all great. They're all different platforms, but if you stick to these same things to identify where your problem is, you can go in and fix the problem with your advertising, and it works it's just been working this whole time. Like, it hasn't changed. Yeah, trends change, creative ad format changes. The funny infomercial ads worked for a while. They don't work very well anymore. Yeah, so all that stuff.
So there's a few directions we can kind of go from here. Like we could get more specific into each of these metrics and talk about different levers you can actually pull. Like, what are all the things that are impacting CPM and click-through rate, and get a little bit more specific there. We didn't really initially talk about it, but we could talk more about Amazon, right, if that's interesting to people, or we can just start Q&A. I know there's only like 30 minutes left, and we want to make sure we get to the important stuff. So does anyone care? Anyone have a preference? Would you like to get more into like the nitty-gritty of some of these metrics and Facebook advertising? Would it be useful to discuss Amazon and how that falls within the strategy of e-commerce? What are you guys thinking? Also,
we're down in Springville, and getting nitty-gritty into all those different things is sometimes more based on an individual need. So we're also mentors, and you can schedule time with us where we can actually look at your ads manager. Both of us have the philosophy of, like, we've both been helped a ton, and like giving back that help is much more what we like to do. And so if you need like someone to take a look at your ads and say, hey, this might be broken, in 20 minutes we could probably figure out what it is on an individual one-on-one basis with your ads.
So I guess from now, like, let's just maybe start taking questions, and we can kind of go from there and move the discussion how it goes. So.
Yep. You haven't asked yet, so I'll ask you first.
What kind of metrics do you need to get or not get, or how much money do you need to spend before you know if an ad is good or not? Like, how do you judge that?
Yeah, so again, this can vary per brand and per account. Like, again, this is probably something we should talk a little bit about, is like setting up ads. We kind of talked about our philosophy of like, hey, what's the right way to set up ads so you're not wasting your money when you start? Because I think a lot of people might be nervous to start ads because they're like, oh, I'm gonna just drop a few $100 and who knows, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm gonna get out of it. So that's probably a good question that would segue us into talking about like, okay, what's the strategic way to set up ads?
Yeah, but the quick answer is you want to make sure that you've had enough eyeballs, and that can change depending on how much you spend. Some of our brands, they're paying $5 for 1,000 impressions, and so to get 4,000 impressions, they're paying $15, $20. Whereas with some of our brands, we're paying $30, $40 per 1,000 impressions, so we have to spend $200 before we can even get a couple thousand impressions. The biggest thing is number of eyeballs. My thing is, like, if you already have a ton of data and you already have like a benchmark to compare against on, say, like your click-through rates, right? Then you can see after 1,000 to 2,000 impressions, if you know already, like, hey, my average ad is a 1.2% click-through rate, this is 0.8%, you're probably good to kill it. But if you have none of that information, I usually let 5, 6, 7,000 impressions is a good way to measure that.
So kind of, I think, and we'll continue to, I think, maybe expound upon your question there and help you kind of come up with an answer based on some of the next things we talk about. But the common pitfalls we see when we audit somebody who's just started on ads or new advertising is like, yeah, I'm going to give ads a shot. They make one ad, right? They write a sentence and, have a little video or an image. They spend $100 on the ad, didn't get a single sale. They get really nervous. They turn the ad off, and they're like, oh, it didn't work. That's happens a lot, right? And that's normal, right? It's nothing to be ashamed of if that was you. That's just kind of the normal starting point. The issue with that type of little test is like you didn't learn anything from that, right? You learned that ad, that piece of content to that person didn't really work. And did you even get enough, like statistically significant enough information to know whether that ad worked or not? Because maybe 500 people saw it, but the next 5 people who saw it all may have bought, right? And you don't know, and the ROAS could have gone from a 0 to a 10, right? So you want to make sure that you have statistically significant data. But the biggest thing is the mindset behind running ads should be, I'm investing into data, right? It shouldn't be like, okay, I'm going to spend money and I hope that I make a bunch of money back right away. That's awesome if you do. If you spend dollars on ads and make tons of money back right away, great. But when you're just starting on advertising, the mindset should be, I'm gonna spend $1,000 and I might lose this $1,000, not get a single sale. But my goal with this $1,000 is to learn, to get data, to test various hooks, to test the problems, to test audiences, to test creative, so I can learn and get closer and closer to having a winning strategy. We kind of use the analogy like starting ads is like building an engine. I stole this from Connor, but
Yes, you did.
I'm going to. So, but it's like building an engine, right? Like you're starting with the pieces. You're not going to be able to drive a car with an unbuilt engine. So when you're spending dollars on ads, you're testing all these different things. You're putting pieces together. You're changing things. You're tuning things. You're tweaking things. You're adding parts, and you're still not going to be able to drive it. But once you hit like a ROAS goal and the metrics start getting there, the reason we love ads is because once you've built the engine and you're hitting your 3 ROAS and you're profitable, scaling is as easy as just pressing down on the gas pedal, right? You literally just type in a bigger number for Facebook to spend and you're basically printing money, right? Sounds great. It's like the most scalable option. Organic, influencer, all of these things are much harder to scale because they take more man hours, more coordination. Ads, once you've built that engine, it's just pedal to the metal, right? So starting out on ads, think of it as building the engine. You're not driving yet. You're not necessarily even guaranteed to make tons of money back. You're building the engine. You're learning. You're testing. You're trying to figure out what is the winning marketing strategy here. And as long as you're getting closer to that, right? If you spend $1,000 on ads and you haven't been profitable, but at least you're getting closer, right? Like every test and change and tweak you've made has improved your click-through rate. You're moving in the right direction. Your conversion rate's improving. Like that's what you want. The goal in the starting of ads the first 6 to 8 weeks is like, I want to start setting myself on a path where I'm improving, getting there, getting closer to profitability. Because as you continue to make changes, continue to refine that strategy, eventually the engine will be built and you'll just be able to scale rapidly in an easier way than literally any other marketing channel that exists.
Pull up Drive. So so we started a brand this year called Drive Golf. It's a supplement brand for golfers. We have a nootropic drink. And so when we started this process, it probably took us $10,000 before we really started getting a profitable ROAS. But we tested 6 or 7 different selling points, right? So for this one specifically, it's, enhance focus, stay focused, stay hydrated, unlock your potential. The biggest thing, like our conversion rate is phenomenal on this, but what we were struggling with was getting people to click on our ads. We had great CPMs. I think we were like $18. The audience is really easy to target. It's golfers. Conversion rate was great. The problem was we just weren't getting people to click on the dang ads. And so we were testing a couple different things like, hey, do you hate losing to your friends in golf? That didn't do it. Are you making lots of little mistakes when you golf? That didn't do it. Do you need more focus while you're golfing? And that was a little bit better. And then finally I was like, you know what? I'm going to make an ad. It was literally just pretty much pulling a stick pack out of a golf bag. And the copy was, it's like Adderall for golfers. The click-through, we were doing like a 1.3, 1.4 ROAS. So again, one of the pillars was not working. We got up to 2.53 ROAS overnight. And then I was trying to push things more and like, okay, well, maybe we can test it a little, tried a few more different variations. Nothing performed better, except it's like Adderall for golfers. And then the golf season ended, and so we paused ads because no one's golfing, so no point in spending money. But yeah, once we did that, we fixed that one pillar of what was actually broken, and it was just continually testing to find what's going to resonate with our audience. And it was like, better focus can mean so many different things, right? But Adderall for golfers really clicked with the audience, and it really made it so like it was comparable in their mind, like of what this product was.
That was kind of going back to what you talked sort of at the beginning, like the language, right?
Yep.
It's like for whatever reason, golfers like got that. That was the language that made sense to them. Saying, hey, you want better focus wasn't as meaningful as Adderall, right? Like, they just got that, right? So it's learning that. So like $10,000, right? Like don't get scared by that number, like, oh, I have to spend 10 grand before, you know, I'm going to be profitable on ads. No, that's not always the case. In this case, like, it's not that we were unprofitable for the whole $10,000. Like, we were getting closer to break even, right? Like, we were right on the edge, and we knew there was just like one slight metric out of place, and we just needed a slight improvement to be at that really profitable, comfortable spot. So we were willing to keep spending because we were so close. So it usually, I would say $1,000 to $2,000 in ads to like really know that you're on the right track and that you have the potential to be really successful in advertising is usually enough. But kind of going back to what I was saying before, when you first start ads, you want to cast a wide enough net with your ads. You're testing various ad copy, various types of creative to various audiences, letting them run. Like, don't touch them like the next day when they've spent $50 and you haven't got a sale, because you need, right? If you're spending $50 a day across 15 ads, each one's only getting a few bucks and not very many impressions. You don't want to turn that off until every ad in that ad set's got enough traction to have statistically significant data. Then you'll start to see, okay, this audience in general looks like it's performing a bit better. These ones aren't working. Let's turn them off and expand on these ones. That's kind of the strategy. And you need to go into it thinking of how many things am I going to be able to test, creative, copy, audience-wise, and have a strategy for how you're going to kind of keep building that engine once you've set up.
So when golf season starts again, everything's already in place with the pillars. We'll probably start the budget at $1,000 a day and just start cranking, because all the pillars are working.
So one thing that I don't think we touched on much, maybe you did, Connor, and I missed it, but when we're talking about some metrics within Facebook, we talked about these core metrics. Ultimately, all of these plus the other one outlier that we haven't talked about is your AOV, right? Like, that also makes a difference in your overall ROAS. When we say ROAS, that's like the king metric. It's your return on ad spend. For every dollar I spend on ads total in marketing, I'm making $2 back or $3 back or whatever it is. And every brand should have a different ROAS goal depending on what your margins are. Standard, I would say, like nowadays, like a 3 is kind of usually considered pretty good for most brands. If you're hitting a 3 ROAS, most brands can be profitable at that. So all of these metrics are ultimately affecting your overall ROAS. What I want to bring up about it is when you're in Facebook and Google and you're looking at all of these metrics, Connor briefly mentioned when we're looking at ads, he said the front-end metrics are more important than like the overall ROAS. I think somebody over here maybe brought that up. When we're talking about the creative pillar, we care about the click-through rate, because if you're looking at the ROAS that's reported in Facebook, it's a lie. Facebook's back-end reporting, like when Facebook tells you a conversion rate or a cost per purchase or a ROAS, it's not going to be accurate, because Facebook just doesn't, because of iOS 14, doesn't have the capability to track all of those things. If you're on Amazon, you know that you're losing sales to Amazon, so Facebook's not tracking that. So the ROAS, like the back end, like performance numbers in Facebook, ignore them, right? So when we're looking at creative and you're talking about your creative pillar and you're trying to decide if an ad is effective or not, don't look at the conversion rate or the cost per purchase in Facebook. You're looking at the click-through rate, because if it's getting the attention, it's probably a good ad, and if it's just not converting, then you can solve it on the website side of things, because Facebook isn't going to track properly. Connor, you can maybe talk more about that if I missed it. But.
Perfect.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm just wondering, like, there's nothing like with the nootropic, you just market it directly to golfers, like golfers in specific, that's not specifically helpful to them, but to everybody. And because of that, are you able to...
Yeah, if you finish your question.
Okay. Because of that, are you able to raise the price because you've niched it to like a really kind of a higher class person? So like the nootropic, if you're selling this as just a great nootropic, you're probably not able to raise the price like you are to marketing to golfers. And I was wondering, is there a formula for selling really high ticket priced items and getting higher than 0.1 conversion rate like you talked about?
So the reason we targeted on golfers is because there's a very specific need in the golf space. There's hundreds of nootropics that like help with your focus, help with like more productivity and all this other stuff. But we wanted to get something that was extremely specific and narrowed down as much as possible. Like, I drank this morning before coming here because it works, it's great, I feel smarter. I'm not, but I feel smarter. But yeah, you can drink it anytime. The reason we wanted to go direct to this is because then we could speak more specific to problems that golfers have. Missing easy chips, missing the putt, all that stuff. And so it wasn't a strategy for pricing. We'd probably still charge the same price whether it was for anything, but it was more because it's easier for us to identify these main problems. And so our conversion rate on new customer acquisition for this is like 3 to 3.5%.
Yeah, I would say theoretically yes, right? And honestly, one of the reasons that we even started this brand in the first place is because we were doing advertising for some other brands that were in the golf category, and we just discovered that it was a really good audience. It was very easy to target. They had high willingness to buy, so conversion rate was higher in general. So it was more of like, for us, like an audience thing. It's like, okay, we know that audience. We know how to target them really easily. And from a problem perspective, like Connor said, we know how we can get really specific with a problem. Like we could say, oh, it helps everybody with focus, but it's easier to sell it and nail on a specific problem. So we made the decision to do this brand more from an audience and problem perspective, not because of a price point perspective, but yes, in general, they would have a higher willingness to buy. So a golfer would probably spend more than, a school teacher would or somebody else that, but that's not why we did it in this case specifically.
There's pros and cons to it too, because golfers are known to be able to spend more money, but they're also like, golf is seasonal. So like the problems with this is right now only like 20% of the country can golf because it's cold. Arizona, California, Florida is like where it's at. So like we can't even, we could run ads, but no one is going to click on our ads because they're not golfing for another 5-6 months anyway. So pros and cons to everything. The main thing that we always look at like a good product or brand or anything comes down to, is there a clear problem that we can solve with this product? Because that's going to make the rest of this 10 times easier.
Yeah, so that problem for us is like, ultimately we're solving like this focus issue, right? So it's like, hey, do you struggle with focus? Too broad, but like it's like, hey, if you're a golfer and you struggle with focus, it's like a lot more, like that person's more likely to stop because they're identifying themselves more accurately, right? Like if you're just generalizing, people are just like, oh, it's not necessarily for me. The more specific you can get, the better. So yeah, we should have time for a couple more questions.
When you're setting up, testing if it's working, if it's not, how much are you putting into the ads? $100, couple $100? How do you know when it's like, you said when it's like dialed in, you put in $1,000 a day?
Again, when it comes down to like how many eyeballs have you seen to see if it's significantly statistically relevant, again, like we said, if you have a baseline of like my average click-through rate on these ads is 1.2% and my average CPM is $18, you have something to compare it to. 2 or 3, 4,000 impressions is more than enough, and that can cost a couple. The cost varies with that. So it's more about eyeballs than spend. So for you to see like what's relevant and if it's working. Because if it's like, hey, it's a 4% click-through rate, keep it going. If it's a 1% click-through rate, it's not doing as well as your average, you can turn it off quicker or give it a little bit more time if it's still like, maybe it's converting better than some of the other ads.
So yeah, that's just a metric of CPM, right? How much you're going to spend to get that many impressions, but focus on the impressions, and depending on what your CPM is, that may be really cheap or really expensive.
Just clarifying question on metrics. So the click-through rate and the conversion rate, are those layered on top of one another? So like a good click-through rate is 1.5-ish%, and then a good conversion is like 2 to 3-ish%. Does that mean like 10,000 goes to 150 click-through rate and then goes down to 3 individuals out of 10,000 that convert?
Yeah, so if, on CPM impressions, right, if 1,000 people saw the ad and you had a 1% click-through rate, that means, 10 people? Then you get to here and you have a 1% conversion rate, means one person bought. So out of the 1,000 people that saw it, just one person. So it becomes a 0.1 of total engagement.
Okay, so I'm sorry if I missed this during the audience section, but I just wanted to clarify. When you're testing different audiences, is it mainly just with the hook, Or I know, Meta and these other platforms are really wanting to implement AI and everything for them to do it for you. So are you doing any interest-based testing or anything like that, or is it just the hooks?
Great question. I don't trust them, period. So when I first start, they only can work with data. And if they have no data, they can't help you. And so they're going to try doing things. So for us, like with Drive Golf, I know who the audience is golfers. And whether it's people who subscribe to Golf Magazine or people who are interested in golf equipment and all that other stuff, that's, things you can test in there. But if I just did a broad campaign and said, hey, Facebook, go find me people, they have no data to work with. So whenever I start, I always start with interests based, and I still rely on interests a lot. Their AI and their Advantage Plus, I don't see, they're always you get a 33% increase in conversion rate. Well, what they're also going to do is they're going to target your ads to people who've already been to your website as part of that group. And they've just intermixed retargeting and cold traffic. And so it really fluffs the numbers because you're getting people who had already been to your website. So I try and do whatever I can to not trust the platforms because their goal is to spend as much money of mine as possible. And my goal is to get as many sales as possible. And so I'd rather trust me than them. So
Yeah, thank you.
I think you had a question right there. And then you were the next one. I saw you. Don't worry.
Okay. I'm piggybacking off of that because you're absolutely right. I was working with a customer and we went from a 12-point ROAS to letting the AI take over the weekend, and it was under 1% after that. So you're right. But I wanted to know what the best way to scale ads is. I was working with somebody who just continuously would throw money at the ad account, and every time they would scale, it would just completely the ROAS would just fall flat. So
Great.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So instead, we ended up looking at the metrics every 3 days and then scaling up from there and slowly, incrementally feeding the fire. And I just wanted to see what your thoughts were.
Great question. So when I'm scaling the budget, first things first, all the pillars have to be clicking. I don't touch the budget until all 3 pillars are working. So for Proto, for example, our conversion rate when we first took over was not great. And we could have spent more money and we would have been at about a 2.2 ROAS, but we needed to get the website in place. And so we got the website conversion rate up and then we started scaling. When I scale, I usually do about 10% of the budget a week. You can be a little bit more aggressive if you're starting off with $100 a day. You can go to you can probably do 20 to 30%. Think of it this way. Like Jono said, the car analogy, you've built an engine, and if you take a brand new engine you just built and take it out on the roads, you want to drive around the neighborhood first before you jump on the freeway. Because if you jump on the freeway and you floor it, something's going to break. Same thing with the Facebook advertising. 10%, especially once you start getting to $1,000 to $2,000 a day, you probably don't want to do anything more than 10% a week. And even once you start getting $4,000 or $5,000 a day in ad spend, I usually will do 5%. And what I'm looking at, though, again, because ROAS might tank, and there's a couple different reasons. One, depends on how long your customers take to buy. So when you're going slow and steady, maybe it takes 4 or 5 days for people to make the actual purchase decision. Milestorm, it's 7 to 14 days. So when we raise the budget, the ROAS drops because we're now filling more people into to the website who are still going to take 10 plus days to decide to buy the product. So we don't panic, but then it allows us to keep cash flow right. So, so again, it depends on that. Two, when you start scaling, if your ROAS tanks, you have to see why it tanked. And that's why the 3 pillars are so important. Did your ROAS tank because your CPM spiked through the roof? Maybe it's your audience was too small and now you're trying to spend too much. Maybe you didn't have enough creative in there so that that one ad that was doing really well, you didn't give it enough time. It wasn't truly proven, so you scaled and then Facebook's like, okay, we'll spend. and you didn't get, it wasn't proven enough. So there's a couple different things. So I keep an eye on those 3 metrics first, because if you scale the budget and your ROAS tanks, the ROAS tanked because one of these front-end metrics, BYU threw the interception in the second quarter. That's why the ROAS tanked at the end of the game, not because of everything else. Hopefully that analogy works. Not everyone watched the game. So, yeah.
So my question is, at what point, if those key indicators aren't going up, those key metrics, at what point do you consider it that maybe instead of it being a problem with one of those 3 pillars, it's a problem with the product?
Great question. We usually don't take on, we used to take on more clients. Now we really only take on products because we just have so much experience. We can identify better products sooner, so we don't have to deal with that as much anymore. But there's a couple things you can look at. Are you way more expensive than everybody else? So for example, if you're selling a product and you're selling it for $30, $40 or twice as expensive as the competition, you might have a product problem. You have a price point problem. So there's a couple different things you look at. Also, like what your margins are. So for example, some brands just don't have as good margin. We ran ads for a clothing company one time, and we were getting a 10 ROAS, and we were like, sweet, let's scale. And the owner called us like, I'm losing money, we're not profitable. And I'm like, how in the world are you not profitable on a 10 ROAS? Well, it was one of those clothing boutiques. She was selling like shirts and blouses and everything like $22, and she was buying it for $18. I was like, well, I'm killing your advertising, but I can't fix that. So we parted ways, and hopefully they figured it out. But so there's lots of different things, and like you just kind of have to take those base on base. But again, with the Drive Golf one is a perfect example. If we would have given up after $5,000 in ad spend, we could have kept saying, well, it's just a bad product. But we also knew the conversion was great, CPMs were great. We just needed to find that. So it was really easy for us, after looking at the data, to keep pushing through and keep spending.
So it's kind of like a balance then? Like if all 3 are bad, then it's probably a bad product. But like if just 1 or 2 is bad, then maybe it's just the...
Yeah, honestly, like I'll add a little bit to that. Yeah, I think if it's a bad product, any of them can be broken, possibly all of them. I would say it probably would more live in conversion, potentially in click-through rate. But if your product is just bad, there's a couple of reasons why it could be bad. One is that it's solving a problem that nobody has, right? And you can usually know that before you even start selling it, right? Like it's pretty easy to validate a product enough to know, like, okay, is the problem I'm trying to solve like actually something anybody cares about? If your product does solve a problem that people care about, it's a pretty good chance that you can nail these. But if your product doesn't do a good job at actually solving that solution or convincing people that it's worth it, you're probably going to see that damage in the conversion rate. Like you'll find the right audience, you'll find the people having that problem, you'll do good enough to talk to that person so they'll click on the ad and they get to the website and they're like, oh, this doesn't actually look very good. You'll usually see that in conversion rate. And there's a couple of things that could be wrong. One, if we're seeing really bad conversion rate problems that we just can't fix, even with all of our sales page methodology, it's usually, there's no product market fit, like people just don't care about that product, or 2, it's just a bad price point. So if you have a really bad conversion rate and you've tested everything, the next thing would be like, let's just experiment with price point. And if you can't get people to convert at any price point, then it's probably just not actually solving the problem in the way that you hoped that it would for people.
What apps like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest are the most helpful for ads? Because I thought TikTok was kind of more of a, like for clothing, it was a good way to spend your ads and everything, just because you get the most clicks. But why is Pinterest better than TikTok, and what other?
Great question. So which is the best ad platform? Facebook and Instagram is still the best. So when you're looking at these platforms, you want to know quality of traffic. The reason Facebook is the best is because it has the highest quality traffic. And when I say Facebook, Instagram, everything, right? Because it has so much more data it can get in front of people who are more likely to buy within the audience you're targeting. The nice thing about Pinterest is it's been around a lot longer than TikTok. It has a higher quality of traffic. Also, the type of people who are on Pinterest are people who spend money. But they also, Pinterest has a crap ton of data because they're a search engine like Google, but they're social like Facebook. So when I say Pinterest is better than TikTok, TikTok's just still too new to the advertising game. And everybody rushed to it. So the benefits that you can get from not as popular ad platforms like Pinterest is your CPMs are gonna be lower. So for JFlex, our CPMs are $5, and on Facebook, they're 20-ish right now with Black Friday sales going on. But the quality of traffic for Pinterest is not as good as Facebook, but my cost per click is so much lower, it's still worth me running. And also then feeding Facebook, because they all work together when the data is going to the same place. TikTok, we've run TikTok ads. It's not that much cheaper traffic than Facebook anymore. The TikTok shop has gone wild, and it's such a messy backlog. They're just still too new, and I don't like being first to ad platforms because you're going to waste a lot of money. If you're wondering about Google is very dependent on which product or what type of product you have. Not everyone should be on Google. Not everyone should be on Facebook. Most Google search brands most brands that were great for Google search back in the day have been kind of screwed over because of Amazon, because people don't search Google to shop, they search Amazon. So Google's kind of lost its edge. It still has YouTube ads, which can be really great. I own a thrift store up in Idaho, and I get $5 CPMs in I'm covering half the town with $300 a month in ad spend. It's great. So it just depends. Each platform's different. But yeah, so.
Yeah, I will say typically it depends on what you're selling. Typically whenever we're starting with a new brand, Meta first. And we usually, when you're new, you want to start on one ad platform, because if you have a limited budget, you don't want to spread it to multiple platforms, because that just limits the overall, power of the data that you're getting. So you want to use as much of your budget as you can on one place to nail it. And once you've nailed that and it's starting to create some revenue, then you move to the next platform, just so you're not spreading your potential ad budget and data acquisition too thin.
But we always start with Facebook.
So I think we're over time, but we're happy to keep taking questions if everyone wants to stay. I don't know, Connor, if you've got to be anywhere, but I'm good to take a couple more.
My wife just asked me to take the kids to the park, but we're good.
So yeah, I'll let you go, and then I saw a couple more.
I think I'm the oldest person in the room. I just wanted you young folks to know I've been to a lot of presentations like this. This is top-notch people here. This is really, really good.
And my book is available on Amazon for $19.99. Advertising like a digital baller is the first one. And becoming a digital baller, the playbook is the first one. The second one's better. It covers this. The first, advertising like a digital baller. But if you come to my office, I've got a bunch of free copies, because, in Springville.
Yeah, also, by the way, we can take a couple more questions, but again, we're more than happy to meet individually with any of you. We're coming here a couple times a month to meet with teams anyway. Mm-hmm. If you want to schedule a time for us to come mentor you specifically, awesome. You can get our contact information easily from iHub and come meet with us privately. So any deeper nitty-gritty questions, we're more than happy to meet with everyone individually. Just so remember that. Don't get worried if you don't get a chance to ask your burning question now. We're available. So.
I've got to run, but thank you guys. Way in the back next. You and then you.
Okay. So in regards to these three pillars that we keep talking about, right? So let's say we have multiple broken, hopefully max. Oh, okay. Hopefully we only have two, but maybe we would say all three are broken. Is a general rule of thumb, let's work from A to D, from...
I always work from, first you have to identify this. If all three are broken, you have not identified this. These first two are really great ways to test. So It's kind of messy because there's not like, yes, you should do it this way. If all three were broken, what I would do is I would build the website as best I could. I have a little bit more knowledge on it now, so like I'm not guessing. So usually our landing pages convert pretty well off the bat. But two, I can use the ad creative to then influence what I do on the website. So for example, JFlex, the reason I realized that it was door damage and no installation and storage was the thing was because the ads had better click-through rates. So that gives me a lot of information. And then what's also nice is like you can then take that and move that into your organic social, your email, all that other stuff. Like this is where you can get the best front-end data to determine more of these other things. But yeah, so build the website with this problem in mind. Run some ads. If your audience is too expensive, like that's always something. But then you can take that data and put it into your website.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Question back there.
Yeah, so my question is like, if I just started a company and then marketing budget is limited, like should I set a target audience at the beginning and then after that just make it broad after?
Start with your best guess. Again, if you have zero insights already, you can only start with a guess, but you can also make an educated guess. Like for drive golfers, it was a pretty educated guess, pretty easy for us to, and we had done some advertising in the golf space before. That's why, personally, I don't like starting brands that aren't well-defined or don't have an ideal target market in the first place, or that are just super broad. Like, personally, I would never start just like a lifestyle brand because they're extremely difficult to nail down that audience and also nail down that problem. Because with, like, Nike, their main problem they solve right now is they make you feel cool. Like, you don't feel cool, you should wear Nikes. That's really hard to convince someone on. So I don't like doing that. But yeah, so like start with your best guess or decide what you want to go into and focus on that first and then expand, maybe test different audiences here and there. So like with fitness brands, like JFlex is really easy. It's home fitness, but fitness is such a massive category. Is it bodybuilders or is it powerlifters? Is it CrossFit? Is it, whatever it is, you can decide what you want to go after, and you can create your content with that audience. And so all the visuals is that audience. Like you can choose where you start. Just you should start with what you think is the best.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Any more questions? Great. One more, then you don't have to keep listening to this voice or looking at this face.
This one's for you, Connor.
Thank you.
We've been trying to decide whether or not to go on Amazon, and you've been talking about how Amazon steals sales. But we've, been chatting with different people, and every time we've talked to someone that sells mostly on Amazon, they say, there's no way that you can lose on Amazon.
There it is.
And then they're like, least you could do is put it up and then try to, run some ads on a few keywords. And then, you're not going to lose, but then you're here saying no, and
So the answer is not no. The answer is it depends on the product. So if you want to sell on Amazon, that's great. You have to make sure that the market fits and there's search volume for your product on Amazon. So we're launching a new product for JFlex. It's a tib bar. I don't know if any of you know what a tib bar is. It's like you put it on your feet and you can work out this muscle right here. There's existing tib bars on Amazon. Ours is different because instead of using regular plates, you can attach your dumbbell to it. So we have a differentiator, but there's currently tons of volume. I wouldn't say tons of volume. There's volume enough on it that if we put it on Amazon, Amazon's going to provide the customers and we just have to be there. Now, the problem we have is we're actually taking our brand Milestorm completely off Amazon as soon as we sell through the product because we're generating almost all of the sales on Amazon through our advertising. We can see that through branded search terms because we're way overpriced on all the other products on Amazon because ours is a higher quality product, but there's all the Chinese knockoffs that have swooped in and are half our cost. So for Milestorm, the Amazon's not providing us with the customers. So if you're gonna be on Amazon, make sure Amazon is providing that customer base. We actually did not want to put JFlex on Amazon because there was no search volume for dumbbell to barbell converter. The company that bought it and that we just bought it from just decided to put there. We're like, don't do that. There's no volume there. You're just going to lose sales to Amazon, which is, you're going to be paying 20%, and all of the sales are still going to come from your Facebook ads. So just put them on, keep it on the web. They didn't. They moved it over. Now there's a ton of knockoffs and all this other stuff, which is like what we spend our time on. But the product didn't need to be on Amazon because we were providing all of the Amazon traffic. So if Amazon can provide you the traffic, great. Amazon's awesome because it takes care of a lot of crap that you don't want to have to deal with on your own website. It's a trusted brand. People trust it. They go there to buy. But if you have to create the traffic, if you have to create the people to search for it because of your Facebook ads, just don't put it on Amazon.
Yeah, so just nailing that a little bit further, what happens when you put a product in Amazon, we call it the Amazon halo effect. You're running Facebook ads, you're sending people to your website, you convince them that they want to buy it, they click add to cart, and then they're like, you know what, I'm going to check if this is on Amazon first. They go to Amazon, they buy it there. You just paid the ad spend to get them to your website, but then you also paid the referral fee to Amazon, so you just lost 15% of your margin. So that's usually what's happening. We've noticed from every brand that we've ever done this with, that Amazon halo effect is anywhere from 30 to 60% for Milestorm. Sometimes it's 70%. Like Milestorm's products are all priced like $30 more on Amazon than our website, and we still have almost all of our sales on Amazon just because we're there. And we know Amazon's not driving the traffic because we don't spend on ads there. All of our traffic is coming from Facebook ads, and people are just choosing to buy on Amazon. So we're just giving up 15% of the margin. So like Connor said, if you can drive new customers through Amazon profitably, great.
On Amazon.
But 99% of the time, we'll go in and check out a brand who's on Amazon, and they're like, oh, our Amazon's doing great. Like, look at our ads. They're getting like a 6 ROAS. We go into the ads and see 99% of the keywords that they're advertising in their ad campaigns are branded keywords. Nobody's going to Amazon searching your brand name unless they heard from you from your Facebook ads, right? So you're just double paying on that, and your actual new customer acquisition on Amazon is probably a 1, and you're just losing money, right? That's what happens most of the time.
So one of the brands we work with is called Mosey Wash, luxury laundry detergent. We moved him on Amazon. Well, he went on Amazon, he used another agency, and they were just advertising branded search terms. So like we saw it, like as soon as it went on Amazon, day one, our normal sales just dipped. But the total revenue between the two platforms was exactly the same. The sales just had gone to Amazon. So we then took over Amazon. I don't know why he didn't ask us to do it in the first place because we do manage our Amazon. Anyways, now it's actually been a great move because there's so much cold traffic for luxury or all-natural laundry detergents. We're pulling in a very positive ROI on new customer acquisition as a whole. And so it's been a great move, but that volume doesn't always exist. So if you can have the best of both worlds, where yes, you can get cold traffic on Amazon from Amazon and bring in traffic from outside, you can get ahead really well with Amazon and sales as a whole, but
so
hard.
yeah, so the key to that, which for some reason nobody does, and most advertising agencies don't do, but the only way that we'd ever launch on Amazon, and it's awesome if you want to give it a test, is when you're running ads on Amazon, separate your branded keyword campaigns from your cold traffic campaigns. So any like branded, for like Otishi, for example, the brand name Otishi weightlifting shoes, Otishi shoes, misspellings of that, anything that could potentially be like somebody came to Amazon with some prior knowledge about the brand, you want to separate those keywords in its own ad campaign, separate from all of the cold advertising, because then you can very easily see, okay, is my success on Amazon coming from my branded campaigns or my cold campaigns? And if you're not successful on the cold campaigns, it's not worth being on Amazon. The other risk factor of Amazon is if you have something that is easily copyable. This was the problem with JFlex, is that our main product, the Hyperbell, it converts your dumbbells into a barbell. That didn't exist before. Nobody was searching for that on Amazon. As soon as the other owner of the brand put it on Amazon, within 6 months we had 50 knockoffs from China that are taking 50% of the market share now. That never would have happened if we didn't put that product on Amazon, and it didn't make sense because there's no search volume there anyway. Anyone that was finding the product there was coming from our ads, so it was just like, those are the risks. Do I risk this being easily copyable? Do I have enough intellectual property to protect myself, or do I not really care if somebody copies this? Like maybe it's with a shoe, not super worried about a direct knockoff. I don't know.
There's probably other brands out there. So,
But if you do go on Amazon and you're going to do ads, do not start ads unless your branded campaigns are separated from your cold keyword campaigns.
have a wonderful day.
Hey, thanks, guys.